Hi, my name is Edmund Frost. I'm from Virginia. I worked for, I guess, 8 years managing Twin Oaks Seed Farm, where most of, I guess, all of what you'll see here took place. I recently, just this winter, have moved to a new farm. So all of this took place in Louisa, but I've moved to Buchanan. It's a very long title, but really I'm working on winter squash adaptation for the Southeast because I found a lot of trouble, especially with downy mildew in northern adapted winter squash. This is a picture from 5 or 6 years ago of just a bad case of downy mildew in cucumbers. And at that time, it was sort of my thinking that the downy mildew really took out the cucumbers in Virginia, and that it affected the winter squash, but I could still get a crop. It wasn't as big an issue on winter squash. But in 2013, and I was growing some winter squash for produce, in 2013, we experienced a crop failure with our Waltham butternut, and it got me sort of on a different track, thinking about downy mildew and winter squash. And actually, I should back up a little bit and just tell you a little bit about what I do. Twin Oaks Seed Farm is primarily a seed production farm. We also grow some produce. Had about 5 or 6 acres in production. So in 2014, I applied for a producer share grant to do cucurbit trials focused on downy mildew. And this was trials in muskmelon, cucumber, and winter squash. This talk is just going to be about the winter squash part. And right in the middle, commonwealthseeds.com/research, you can look up a full report with data and pictures and all about this whole project. So, okay, so here's a picture of our winter squash trial. It was about a half acre, and we had, I guess we had about 20 replicated entries and a dozen non-replicated ones. We trained them all separately. And I just want to say Michael Mazurek from Cornell is here, and I got a lot of the ideas for methods from him, including I didn't know before this that you needed to train them separately, but I think it's an important step. And there we are training the vines. You have to go through about twice a week in the summer. So this is at the end of August, and these pictures are, I knew these were really great pictures when I took them because you can see we had a border planting of Waltham butternut there and there, and it all got killed by downy mildew in late August. And then you can see in the trial there's patches of ones that weren't as good, but most of the trial really looks pretty good. So we had a whole lot of, I really looked towards the far southeast US and also tropical and subtropical areas, particularly the Caribbean and Southeast Asia for cultivars. And what we found was there was actually a whole lot of downy mildew resistant material out there. Maybe it's not in, maybe it's kind of variable or kind of large or has various issues, but there really isn't a big problem finding resistant material. It's more of an issue of getting it into a form that is marketable. So this is just some other good pictures of comparison pictures. Waltham in the front, Tyke Cobb behind that. It's a Thai variety. Seminole there compared to Waltham. Now these pictures, I will say they're really dramatic and great pictures. At the same time, Waltham is a little bit earlier of a crop than Seminole, so there's a little bit of a bias there, but really it's pretty accurate. You know, this just gets really bad downy mildew, and it'll get some later, but nothing like the Waltham. So this picture is a comparison picture between Waltham butternut and a cross that I had made a couple years before between Seminole and Waltham. And you can see in the F3 generation, I already had really good downy mildew resistance into it. This is a picture of some of the harvest. Really had all different kinds of squash in here. I'll have more pictures of that later on. So this is Seminole fruits. One of the varieties that did well in the trial. This is a Florida landrace. There's actually several different versions of it, but this is one we've been growing for a while. It's got pretty good eating quality, but it has a large seed cavity. It also stores well. This is Waltham butternut. Like I said, we do some produce growing, and actually by that I mean some winter squash for produce growing. And so we got into doing butternut produce crops and did pretty well in 2011, 2012, or decent, and then in 2013 we had a crop failure because the downy mildew came in June rather than in August like it usually does. And that just reminds me, when we did our trial, we planted it late to help make sure that we would get good downy mildew exposure. And we did. So this is a Seminole crossed with Waltham, F1, bell-shaped. The downy mildew resistance was like a lot better than Waltham, but not super great. This is Seminole Waltham F3, and it's probably like 50% butternut shapes. For some reason, this harvest here had more butternut shapes than some, but it's really a nice looking squash, and it's a good tasting squash. I was actually able to wholesale a lot of it. Okay, and this is the comparison picture again with Seminole Waltham and Waltham. So that's me in December of 2014 doing bricks tests. Again, Michael explained to me how to do this, and you basically you put the squash in a bag and freeze it, and then get the juice out of it that way. But we did bricks evaluations, and we did dry matter evaluations, which is an important quality measure for squash. The higher the dry matter, the better the quality it tends to be. And we also did tastings. Okay, so into 2015, we didn't have funding, but I did some breeding and evaluation anyway, and this included, this is a planting of 70 separately trained Seminole Waltham plants, mostly F4s, but there's some F3s in there too. So we trained them all separately, and I tried to self-pollinate them all, and got about 3/4 of them. You can also see there's a row here of a border planting. And I'm sorry for folks that maybe don't know much about downy mildew, don't really have time to get into it, but it's a disease that affects most of the eastern U.S. It's my understanding there's little, if any, out here. Okay, some self-pollination. This is yield evaluation. Also did dry matter and bricks evaluations. This is maybe my favorite plant, but of course I didn't get a self-pollination on it. Um, and some other plants. And this is in like mid-October, so even though you don't see great foliage, they had good resistance. Frost is about mid-October where I am. Just some pictures of a few other varieties that I really liked in the trial. This is a Cuban tropical pumpkin. It has really good downy resistance, really good productivity, and good eating quality also. I'm excited to work with it more. It's another picture of it. Thai King Cob, it's a Thai variety, really, really, really rich flavor, good downy mildew resistance, not high yields, but it's probably because it puts so much energy into each squash. This is a variety that I got at a seed swap here 2 years ago from Glenn Tevis, and it's a Chinese tropical pumpkin, and it's just, I'm really impressed with it. It's downy mildew resistance. It has great flavor, sort of a creamy taste to it that butternut doesn't really have. So I'm excited to work with this. It's sold as F1 crowning, but it appears to not really be a hybrid or not much of a hybrid. I want to do more selection work, more evaluation and potentially a little bit of selection with it, but I'm excited about it. Jamaican tropical pumpkin, another really resistant and variable seed stock. Choctaw sweet potato from Mississippi originally. There's a cornfield, it's a cornfield pumpkin, and this was a thing that was traditionally planted kind of all over the South. Often it's animal feed in some cases. That's a picture of Carolina Farm Stewards Conference a year and a half ago, talking about this project. And, what? Okay. That's Solaire. It's a Puerto Rican variety. And, okay, real quick, what's next? I applied for another SARE grant to do breeding in 2016. We'll be continuing to work with the Seminole Waltham cross, making additional crosses with that. And then also we'll just be doing selection work with a lot of other varieties. So not crossing them, but trading each plant separately and evaluating for downy mildew resistance, eating quality, dry matter, bricks, etc. And trial some new varieties. So we are Commonwealth Seed Growers is a seed growers cooperative and a retail company. So we're already selling many of these varieties in the Southeast. So I really am excited to gather more input from commercial growers about these varieties. And that's it.